Welcome to FRCMedia News for Thursday, October 1st, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. This week, we get some local COVID-19 updates from Mayor Paul Coogan, including what Halloween may look like in Fall River. Local businesses are still trying to find ways to recover from the effects of the pandemic. The state will be moving ahead with its budget deliberations with a deadline of October 31st. We hear from Senator Michael Rodrigues. And we will also hear from more candidates on the November 3rd ballot. All that coming up. The number of cases of COVID-19 in Fall River has been steady for about a month, with some spikes, but the city remaining in the state's yellow category of concern. Mayor Paul Coogan tells us today that it's still difficult to get a handle on the severity of the problem within the city.
We're probably holding firm. I actually thought, again, I did an interview the other day. I thought we were going to be popping towards the red, which some other neighboring communities have. It's just tough to get a handle on it because a lot of our positive cases right now are asymptomatic. They don't even know they're sick. They may get caught up in a contact tracing thing where if someone's been around Keith and Keith's positive, we find out they're also positive, but they're like, I feel fine. Why can't I go out? So it turns into a disagreement, but we haven't had like cluster. We haven't had an explosion. We've had a few families, but that's, 4 or 5 people. And that just seems the way we're trending right now. There are individual cases that keep popping up.
Governor Charlie Baker this week announced that effective on Monday, those communities in the yellow category or better, and that includes Fall River, will be able to start step 2 of phase 3 of the reopening. Now, this involves loosening more restrictions for restaurants and allowing entertainment venues, such as the Narrow Center for the Arts, to reopen in a limited capacity.
I had a conversation with Pat Norton yesterday after the guidance came out, and he said he thinks he'll be able to get something going with those numbers. So I'm hoping we can get a few things going safely in Fall River. It would be sure would be nice to try to add a little bit of old normalcy back to the city. And we'll see what happens with the venues. I was kind of confused because they said 50% of capacity and 250, and they use the same numbers for outdoors. So you got a place like Great Woods, which holds 13,000 people. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but putting 250 in there versus 250 in the Narrows would be fine. We could spread them out, but that place would hold a heck of a lot more than 250. So we'll see how they play it out.
With the city on the edge of being classified in the red category of COVID concern, any suspension of expansion under phase 3 in the governor's plan would not take place until a community is in the red for 3 consecutive weeks. With Halloween on the horizon, the mayor says city children should be able to safely trick or treat with guidance.
I think we're going to try to make it as close to normal as possible. We're going to try to discourage those big productions where we have 200 or 300 kids on a sidewalk looking at a haunted house. We'd like to diminish the grouping, but if we could have safe candy distribution at someone's house, that's not the end of the world for me. As you know, we are planning an event at the end of the month, October 30th. We're going to have Hocus Pocus back at our drive-in up at Durfee, which we're going to try to make sure that's a safe event. But again, for regular trick-or-treating, we have to have everybody be respectful. If someone doesn't have their lights on, that doesn't mean they don't want to give out candy. It just means they're trying to be safe this year. So we're going to try to grant people passes. Do whatever you're comfortable with doing. Keep your kids with you and don't go bunching up into groups of 20 or 30 trick-or-treating. We'd like to see small groups using social distance and being smart.
6 months after the Commonwealth shut down due to the effects of COVID-19 and 2 months into phase 3 of reopening, South Coast businesses still have no clear guidance as to their future. Rick Kidder, co-CEO of the One South Coast Chamber, says many local businesses are holding their own as best they can, while some sectors face challenges that will have a lasting negative impact.
One of the other things we need to consider is that we pretty well lost our tourist season. That tourist season, although it doesn't sound, we've never thought of this as a major tourist area, it actually produces some $560 million in revenue and spend in our area each summer. And a lot of that has been lost. We've had some drive market, which is great. but we've lost a lot of the stay market. So our hotels are supremely challenged. Looked at a set of numbers this morning that show comparison year over year, and it's pretty depressing when you look at the hotel numbers. So our hotels and our restaurants, our hospitality sector, they've been supremely challenged, as Mike said, and they're going to continue to be challenged for a while.
Co-CEO Michael O'Sullivan says restaurants are doing their best at maximizing their revenue with space restrictions and are looking to continue to provide outdoor service as long as the weather cooperates. He also says being adaptable and creative may not be enough for some businesses to survive.
It seems like there's categories of business where it's really, really hard. As you know, we've mentioned the restaurants are struggling, and Venus de Milo is a very, very prominent restaurant that you can, is now for sale, or the property's for sale, and they're going to close the business and move a lot of things over to Jillian's. But you've got some other categories of business that are really struggling in the arts and culture world. Music venues like the Narrows, the organizations like that, they need help from the federal government. They really need to be included in the process and in the funding, and they're not, and they haven't been yet. And they struggle, and they really drive the economy, and they drive tourism. As Rick said, we have a $560 million tourism economy here, and companies like the Narrows, the Zeitarian Theater in New Bedford, they all help drive it, and they're not getting the funding from the government like they need.
Mr. Kidder says some businesses are frustrated by the lack of action from Washington in providing additional financial support.
And at this point, I think scoring points with potential voters seems to be more the word of the day than actually getting the job done. And it's kind of sad to watch that. But as you watch Congress in the midst of battles where they don't want to give the other party a win in any perceived way, we're getting more and more stalemated. Both parties have come forward with relief plans that they would like to put into place. There is a vast gap between them in terms of size and nature. But the reality is that both want to do something, but neither one wants to give someone else a win. So we may end up finding ourselves getting through the presidential political season before we finally end the stalemate. And unfortunately, one of the most recent statistics shows that 60% of the businesses that closed are not going to reopen. That's a real challenge for this economy in the long term.
The pandemic is still making things a bit difficult for those in state government. The Commonwealth currently does not have an approved state budget for fiscal year 2021, and its temporary spending plan expires on October 31st. Former state senator and chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, Michael Rodrigues, says the body will begin deliberating a spending plan later this month, with many unknowns still before them, including whether the federal government will help the state recoup losses in revenue, which will likely total over $5 billion.
So as of right now, we're counting on $0 from the federal government. As of right now, that means that in order for us to balance the budget, we take that tool off the table. It's left with our savings account, so-called rainy day fund, the stabilization account. It has a very healthy balance. That's a good thing. We can and will dip very heavily into that account. That's okay. But keep in mind, you can only do that once. You can only spend those dollars once, then they're gone. There will be cuts. There will be budget cuts. There will be cuts throughout state government for those accounts that we can cut. And that's a whole nother story, because there are some accounts like debt service. It is. You have to pay your debt, your debt. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So it will be first and foremost, rainy day stabilization, dipping into our savings account. Secondly, cuts on budgeted line items. And third, it will be other so-called low-hanging fruit. There are some easier, not easy, but easier administrative fixes that we're going to do in order to balance the budget for FY21, and just wait and hopefully the feds get their act together in DC and pass a stimulus bill.
Senator Rodrigues says the legislature is looking to approve a budget over a 1-month time frame when it normally has 3 months to deliberate. He says getting it done will require the cooperation from his colleagues in government.
It can only happen with an unprecedented level of communication, cooperation, and collaboration with our friends in the House, because they are a co-equal branch of government, so they have their opinions, rightly so, on how state dollars should be spent. And then our friends in the governor's office, in the corner office, because Governor Baker has the ability to veto anything that he sees fit to veto. And if we get over aggressive and spend too much money, he has the ability, and I will say the responsibility, to unilaterally make cuts, so-called 9C cuts, to ensure our budget's in balance. Keep in mind that unlike the federal government, and I just read today that under President Trump, the federal deficit is almost doubled. I don't know how many trillions of dollars in federal deficit. We do not have a deficit. We have to have a balanced budget.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Administrative Assistant, Fall River Municipal Credit Union, located at 333 Milliken Boulevard, is looking for a full-time administrative assistant to provide daily support to the CEO and assist the Board of Directors as needed. Job number 140-52302. Dancer Teacher, On Stage Academy of Performing Arts, located at 3770 North Main Street, is in need of a part-time dancer teacher to teach jazz, tap, and ballet to children 10 through 18 years old. Job number 140-50571. Pharmacist, Walsh Pharmacy of Rock Street, located at 202 Rock Street, is seeking a full-time pharmacist responsible for reviewing prescriptions, preparing, verifying, labeling, and dispensing prescription medication to patients. Job number 140-52112. St. Anne's Hospital, located at 795 Middle Street, is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Wound Care Medical Assistant, job number 140-41458. Nursing Assistant, job number 140-43434. Citizens for Citizens, located at 101 Rock Street, also is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Human Resources Benefits Assistant, job number 140-51133. Help Desk Endpoint Technician, job number 140-50965. For more information about these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. We're a little over a month away from the state election, and we're continuing to bring you portions of our conversations with the candidates on the ballot. Fall River is served by 3 state representatives in Boston. 2 of them are running unopposed this year. Fall River State Representative Carol Fiola is seeking election to a 4th full term serving the 6th Bristol District. She was first elected during a special election in September of 2013. Representative Fiola says among her greatest achievements to date has been helping to secure resources for much-needed local transportation projects.
We've locked in the money for South Coast Rail. People right now, if they drive down North Main Street, they'll see, and they've been asking a lot about that, what's going on North Main Street. Trees are being cleared. There's a lot of construction going on, because that is the fruit of all of our work, the people before me and while I've been here. This has been one of the most important projects that we have worked on. And so the other project that I've worked on very hard, and we're seeing that begin to come to fruition, and this has been a main project of mine, the Route 79 North project, because that is going to lower the rest of those boulevards. We're going to have access across Duval Street, Route 79, right to the waterfront. We saw the first stage of that went from the Braga Bridge to the Cove, and now we're going to see from the Cove restaurant north to the other, the old Brightman Street Bridge. We're going to see a lot of work there. It's about a $60 million project. So those are two things that I can say amongst many that I feel very proud to have continue to help shepherd along.
Representative Fiola is also proud of her support for increasing education funding to Fall River through the Student Opportunity Act, and working well with her colleagues in Fall River and throughout the legislature. But she says her number one priority is meeting the needs of constituents who call her office for help.
Bureaucracy can be very difficult to navigate. We see that all the time, whether it's the Registry of Motor Vehicles, the Unemployment Office, Social Security, dealing with that with our partners in the federal government, housing issues, food security issues. We field calls every day, and we are able to put people together with the right people to get them answers. We get them answers. We do this every day, and I like to pride myself and my team. I give great credit to my team that they know it's a priority. And how do I know that? We get thank you notes. Now, are we looking for thank you notes? Absolutely not. That's what you elected me to do, to be as helpful and to serve you, because I am the representative for the 6th Bristol District. But let me tell you, constituent service, every single constituent, every single resident of my district gets exactly the same treatment. They get a call back, we find out what they're looking for, and we try to help them, period.
State Representative Alan Sylvia has served the 7th Bristol District since 2013 and is seeking his 5th two-year term, also running unopposed. Among the issues he has championed is providing Fall River families with access to early childhood education.
Most of the bills that I file come from people in the community. They come to me and say things like, why aren't we doing more for preschool children between the ages of 3 and 5? Why are we not getting them kids to school? So as a result of that, I filed a bill to have 3 to 5-year-olds in gateway communities. Those are the communities, the 26 other communities like Fall River, Brockton, Pittsfield, Springfield, where we have a high density population of homes, families where there are issues with substance abuse, with social issues, with nutrition, and getting those children into the classroom.
Representative Sylvia is also proud of his work as vice chair of the Committee on Public Safety and collaborating with the rest of the local delegation in securing state dollars for Fall River. In his next term, the representative hopes to do more in protecting the interests of local seniors.
There's two parts of society that, I worry about the most. That's our youngest children, as I mentioned, the pre-K, 3 to 5, education, and our elderly. They deserve much more than they're receiving. They've been the biggest recipients of the tragedy of COVID. The majority of those that have suffered are elderly, and we want to continue to improve their lives. I always laugh when people say these are my golden years when they come into my office. They're not so golden. We want to make them golden years. We want to make those their lives better in this community.
In the 8th Bristol District, Democratic State Representative Paul Schmid is being challenged by Republican Evan Gendro. Representative Schmid is the dean of the delegation, having served in the legislature for 10 years. He's proud of his record, particularly when it comes to supporting the Student Opportunity Act.
This Act means a significant increase in state funding for education here in Fall River. We will be able to increase our per student spending from about $13,000 a student to over $20,000 a student as a result of increased state funding. This will take 7 years, and it is a challenge right now in COVID, but it is a commitment by the State House and by the governor to significantly increase the resources that we have for our education. And we all know that education really is the basis for economic development. The old days, being able to get a job in a mill without a high school degree, or maybe even without speaking English, those days are gone. And employers that are looking in Fall River to expand or to relocate are basically looking for the quality of an educated workforce. And the Student Opportunity Act is something that I think we'll be looking back on in 20 or 30 years.
Representative Schmid points to his role with his colleagues in support of public safety and securing money for South Coast Rail. He says if reelected, he would like to focus on improving opportunities in higher education.
We have flipped the funding for higher education from one where the state paid most to one where the government pays only a small portion. And this has made it incredibly difficult for our young people who need those extra degrees, whether it's an associate or a bachelor's. It's made it so hard for them to be able to fund the education that they need. And I think that we need to find some way, some extra stream of revenue to make higher education once more affordable.
Evan Gendro is a Westport resident preparing to finish his college degree. If elected, the 21-year-old Republican would be the youngest member of the legislature. Mr. Gendro feels his age is an asset in this race.
I think that our community deserves a new voice. Engaging younger people in the political process is a great thing to do. We see, unfortunately, lower rates of participation among young people. So I think it's important to get them out to vote, get them involved in the process. I've been involved in local politics for a couple of years. I worked on a U.S. Senate campaign in 2018. I worked at the Public Policy Center over in Dartmouth for a year as well, where I worked on a lot of community issues. So these are issues that I've worked a lot on. I've worked on the data that pertains to it, spoken to a lot of folks in the community, heard their concerns. So I think it's my age is an asset in this race.
In terms of the issues he's prioritizing during his campaign, Mr. Gendro is interested in improving education and expanding small business. He also wants to ensure state government is more responsive to the people.
Speaking with employers in the South Coast in our district, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of potential for job growth. I think we can couple our education policy with a robust workforce development policy to make sure that children graduating schools, going out of high school, going into trades, going to college, have jobs when they come out. And there are a lot of employers that are ready to identify the needs for our policymakers to set that in motion. So that's an issue that I'm focused on. I'm also focused on accountability and transparency. And I know that's an issue that a lot of politicians will talk about as an abstract thing, but there are concrete things that we can do to improve accountability and transparency in the State House. Massachusetts is one of only 4 states in the nation where the legislature is exempt from public records law. So ending that exemption, having more transparency on Beacon Hill, there are actual ways that we can do that. You hear a lot of things that are shrouded in secrecy up at the State House, but I'm committed to running a transparent campaign and if elected, having a transparent office. So there are things that we can do at the state. Another issue is, I mentioned it before, is taxes and fiscal responsibility, making sure that policies that lawmakers enact are, won't hurt the pockets of working families, especially during the pandemic.
We invite you to visit our special Election 2020 webpage, frmedia.org/election 2020, where you can find links to our complete interviews with the candidates, as well as those supporting and opposing the ballot initiatives on the November 3rd ballot. Please check it out. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Here we have Penelope. Penelope is a 2-year-old tiger tabby. She's very friendly, and she's outgoing, but she's not in your face, all up in your business. She is okay with other cats once she gets to know them a little bit, and she's very, very sweet and friendly. If you want to meet Penelope, then fill out an application on our website at foreverpaws.com or make an appointment with us at 300 Lynwood Street in Fall River. Penelope would really like to meet you.
We also do get a lot of birds. As you can see right here, we have a parakeet. This is Sprite, a fairly unoriginal name, to be honest with you. Lemon and lime on there. You can tell why we named him Sprite. But we do get other types of birds, sometimes larger. We've gotten doves and pigeons before. In the past, we've even gotten various kinds of parrots as well. They're not quite as common, but we do sometimes get them. We've got Comet, who is away in his home here. I'm just going to peek this up so you can at least take a look at him. You can see he's all black, being a typical guinea pig, a little bit skittish. So if you'd like to come down and meet Tiny, Comet, Sprite, or Blaze, or any of the other guys that we happen to have in here, you can come down to 300 Lynwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
That's all for this edition of FRC Media News. Please check out our website at frmedia.org for all the latest news and information, our Channel 95 program schedule, and our webpage previewing the candidates and the issues in election 2020. FRC Media News airs Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.